There he is. Is your mic on?
What's going on, brother?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I see you got your Tiger King. You know what I'm saying?
Man, I got my quarantine beard going. You should see that.
I see
That's
that.
crazy. Hey, I got to get your opinion real quick.
Uh-oh.
Have you been watching the MJ docs?
I have, bro. I love it.
Talk to me.
I love it, man. Well, I think the one thing that's interesting is how they're like going back and forth. But I think what it does is because like what happened, and this is just my opinion, but what happened when Warriors started to kill and then they got KD is there's this really weird thing that they did where they just said, oh, the Warriors, look at all these Hall of Famers they have on their team. And then they started talking about the Bulls and the fact that they have Rodman and Scotty, and the fact that, boom, if you just have these dudes on your team, then it's just easy. Like the path is just easy and everything just works out. And it's just like, obviously they killed because they had this like idea that's out there. And I think the cool thing about the documentary, and it's probably a documentary like no matter what team you have, no matter what great team, is it talks about the hardships and the difficulties and the things that like went on that like maybe you didn't even really know about. To say that, oh, it wasn't just roll out and just beat everybody. It was a lot that you have to navigate, and I think that's pretty cool.
All right. Enough BS. Who's your GOAT?
Jordan. It's not even
Okay.
close. It's not even close. It's not even close, man. It's not even close, man. In my opinion.
It's how old are you right now?
I'm 35.
Okay, so I'm 30. So you got more years of watching him live. But I think for the younger generation, this documentary is like super helpful.
But this is the thing about it, man. I think that it's not just that the young generation didn't see him. It's just that what we imagine a good and valuable basketball player has changed, right? And right now we have no concept, unless you actually know basketball, you have no concept of the value of the different type of player, right? Not everybody is a scorer. Not everybody is a rebounder, defender. Not everybody is a facilitator, right? And so now we have this idea that if you can score and facilitate, you are by default better than the person who can only score.
Right.
And that just doesn't make any sense because anybody who's really hooped, each team has their own different dynamic, right? And you can have one team with a dude who'll give you 20 and 10, and then the other team has a dude who can give you 30. Now, who's better? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just a different style. And so I think that right now, because LeBron is on the top, we value just in the way that we talk about basketball year after year after year, we value the person who can do more things differently.
Yeah.
But like, if anybody's hooped, if you have a dude on the other team who's gonna score, and you know you have to do everything, and then you know you're probably not gonna stop him, and his main move is not like, you know how they do Giannis and they build that wall, or how they used to do LeBron, they build the wall. But if you can shoot, there's no wall you can build.
Right.
And if you have to double team, but you have to double team at 15 feet, that's different than double team in the post. You got to come bring a double team way out to 15 feet. That means you leave the basket and the three-pointer open.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like that's the way that a person can control the game from the mid-range is just, I have more appreciation the older that I get for what it was than I had even when I was younger.
It's crazy. The two things that really stand out watching this documentary back is one, just how exciting and electric MJ's moves still are decades later. And then the second thing is it's hard to kind of watch like the spacing of the game back then, knowing what we know now. You know what I mean? It's like people are taking like 18-foot jump shots. No one's spaced out. There's like no high pick and roll. It's like it's a totally different basketball.
Well, the interesting part is I was just arguing with some people online yesterday, and they were saying how much better the players are today, right, compared to back then, right? And then if you're just talking about athleticism, it's not even. I mean, we got like you can turn on Twitter, you got 8th graders going between the legs like it's nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what I think that is so much different is now we equate offensive skill to just being better at basketball. And like if we look at basketball now, you can just switch the weakest defender onto your best player.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they do every single time down the court in the
Yeah.
NBA is they just switch that. And imagine if you could get Steph Curry on Jordan instantly, then it doesn't matter if the rest of those guys are good at basketball. It doesn't matter that the rest of those guys are good at defense because you can just instantly switch the weakest defender on this dude. And then you have a guy who has an offensive skill set. Like it wasn't even like that with Kobe. Like with Kobe, you had like dudes guarding Kobe, like Shane Battier or like whoever. They were following him around.
Yeah.
Or the NBA now, it's just like we're doing more team defense because what we're really doing is defending the 3-point.
Right. Right.
So it doesn't matter who's guarding the individual. We're just guarding the 3-point line and guarding the basket. And so just everything has changed so much. It's just hard for me to imagine that if you got whoever on Jordan, like the weakest defender consistently, that you would be able to stop him in the modern day NBA. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he would dominate in any era. I mean, it would just be he would learn how to shoot the three really well. He would just spend thousands of hours figuring it out. He would just dominate.
But he shot 33%, even though like that's not terrible.
No, that's not terrible. But I'm saying like he would go to the next level. He'd be like 40%.
Right.
The thing that's crazy about the switching thing you just brought up is I'm shocked that more dudes that are good defenders in today's league don't try to fight through that and stay with their man. They give up that switch so easy. It's like the screen doesn't even really need to happen. There doesn't even really need to be contact.
I think it's one of the few points where you can see that coaching is taking effect, right? Because you can have all your ideas and all your pride as an individual player, but if the scheme is that we switch this and we're planning for the switch, just like they're trying to get the switch, we know they're trying to do this, so we actually have a deep that's the reason why, like, okay, they stick out the stats that like Steph Curry played so well against LeBron one-on-one in the finals, but because they had a defense set up to say, okay, they're going to try to get Steph on LeBron, and so this is how we're going to defend LeBron with Steph as the primary defender. This is how we're going to defend whoever, you know what I mean? And it's all about the switching, and it's all about sending like multiple bodies at somebody instead of it being one guy trying to lock them down. So I think it's just like a scheme thing, but it's frustrating to me, you know, honestly, because I'm like, this is weird. Like, how do you not just lock in on a guy? I don't know.
Yeah, there's some dudes still that will just lock in on a guy like Avery Bradley. He'll fight through screens and just stay with his man. Like you're totally right though. It probably is a scheme thing where the coach is like, "Yo, we know what we're trying to do defensively. Let's just get that switch and then do what we're working on." Is LeBron your number 2?
All time?
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to. I mean, I think that it's the difficulty in evaluating players and styles plays into the difficulty in ranking Magic, because like Magic went to the championship like 9 out of 11 or 9 out of 12 years he was in the league. He was obviously the leader of the championship team. He had other Hall of Famers on the team, but he was the engine that made everything go. But he only averaged like 18 and 12 or something like that. You know what I mean? So, and I think it's also interesting that they've just all of a sudden said that LeBron, who averages 7 assists a game, and that's not to sneeze at that, is a better passer than Magic.
Yeah. That's tough.
Stockton is like a million assists more than everybody. But so like it's interesting that they like are shifting. Like there's no way you get Magic highlights right now. He's legit no look 50-foot passes on a consistent basis. And like this is not normal. There's nothing normal about what he was doing. It was abnormal. And he was like, it was crazy. And you're talking about a dude who was so good that he stepped into the league and was a dominant player. And so like it wasn't like it didn't take time. You know what I mean? Like he was the cream of the crop from the gate. And it's just hard to rank him because of his scoring. But I got Magic 3. I got LeBron 2 because you just have to. But I mean, he's so good.
Yeah. So then Magic 3, and then where's Kobe on your list?
I mean, it's hard. I think I got the bigs after that. I got Shaq. And like you got to give the bigs love, like the Shaqs, the Kareems, the Hakeems, the Tim Duncans. Even I got Kobe ahead of Tim Duncan. You know what's interesting about Tim Duncan? In this era of media where all we do is pick apart people's failures, nobody even knows what years Tim Duncan lost. Nobody knows what Tim Duncan didn't do. Nobody has any idea. Like they never won 2 championships in a row. Like imagine if that was like LeBron or if that was Kobe or if that was MJ and they got it done and then the next year they were good enough and then they failed. They lost in the second round. The Spurs have some very interesting losses nobody cares about.
Right.
And all that matters is over the course of these 20 years, they won 5 rings. And so it's interesting that some people avoid that level of criticism. And then some people like we just make it like the number one thing that we pay attention to.
Yeah, the Spurs in the public eye were almost more, it was more about the team versus that one individual, Tim Duncan.
Right.
And so the failures were put on the team, but
Right.
the accomplishments were put on Tim Duncan.
Or put on nobody. Who talks about the Spurs losing? When have you ever had a basketball conversation? And anybody would talk about like, ooh, but the Spurs, like they lost in 2005 to whoever, and like no details about the series. We don't know what happened. Yeah. They've disappeared from the archives, bro.
That's a good point.
We don't care about their team like that. But the interesting part is the Spurs' legacy is truly to change the game, because it was the Spurs offense that ignited Steph Curry and Clay and the Warriors. And that pass that everybody gets the ball, everybody shares the ball, allowed Steph to not be a bring the ball up the court point guard. You know what I mean? And how crazy is that? It's interesting that
I think it's because they had such a long run of being like a decent team to a great team that
right.
They almost get like a pass for those few years where they stumbled. All right, CJ.
Lots of years.
Yeah, it was lots. There was a run there in the what years would you say were like their big struggles, their big fails?
This is the whole thing. And Matt, like this is the way we judge other people. If your team is good enough to win the championship and you don't win and fail, this is how we judge. Mm-hmm. Spurs were championship caliber team. They had their championship core and they lost all these different times, and they don't get judged by the same, you know what I mean? They don't get, like, we know about Kobe's, those after Shaq Kobe years. We know all about him. We know he lost. We know what round he lost in. We know that they lost a 3-1 lead to Phoenix. We know that he struggled and he couldn't carry his team and what's wrong with Kobe. And we know. We don't even know what years. What year did Tim Duncan, like what? I don't know. 2008? I don't know. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. I just think it's interesting. But then certain people rank Tim Duncan over Kobe, and I think one of the reasons is because we don't know his failures. We're very aware of Kobe's failures, but we don't know Tim Duncan's failures. We don't know the games that he didn't shoot well and he let his team down. We don't know.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. If whatever you're doing right now doesn't work out, I think you really have a career on ESPN next to Skip and my man Stephen A.
Bro, you want my hot take? I got a hot take for you, bro. I got a hot take.
Let me hear
this is what people don't understand about the appeal of Jordan, right? So the appeal of Jordan and the appeal of Steph is very, very similar. And this is what I'm going to tell you why. When Steph is on, all he's doing is hitting ridiculous jump shots in people's face. That's it. And that's like that's the reason why it's crazy, is because it's like, no, he didn't take that. Water. Oh, no, he didn't water. Just all game long. And you know, as a defender, you're not blocking jump shots. Everybody knows. You're not even attempting to block the jump shot. What you're doing is attempting to bother the shot, or you're attempting to disrupt the footwork and disrupt the rhythm, because you know you actually can't stop somebody from releasing the jump shot. So if they're hitting the jump shot, you're just like, I mean, it demoralizes you. Like when Steph's hitting, the other team just gives up, because it's like, what are we going to do? He's shooting from freaking Egypt, right? That's the same thing that Jordan was doing, because all he was doing was hitting jumpers. I mean, jumper after jumper after jumper, double clutch, pivot jumper, fade, one hand triple clutch jumper. And it was like all game, you're just going to feed this dude jumpers. We can't stop that. And it would demoralize the other team because they're just like, man, there's no defense to stop a mid-range jumper.
No.
You just hope he misses. And if he's shooting 50% from the mid-range, it's like it's a very similar appeal. And the reason why he was so popular is it's just so impactful when you have a dude who gives you 45 and 3/4 of them are just pull-up jumpers right in people's face. That you're like, people's hands are touching, or 3 people are on you, and you just turn around and rise up, and you just hit it. I mean, there's something just crazy about that.
You're
And
right.
I think the appeal is very, very similar.
You can't count out all those crazy dunks though. I mean that was
right. The dunks are crazy, right? But then the dunks oftentimes are opened up by the fact that they're deathly afraid of the fact that if you can't load up, you know how the Spurs guarded LeBron, where they just put everybody in the key, and left him out on the 3-point line. You can't do that with Jordan because he'll just, even if he can't shoot the 3, he'll take one dribble forward and shoot 50%. So It's like, come on, man, you can't do that. You have to guard him all the way out because it's like the fear is all the way extended. Now with Steph, it's extended to 35 feet. You know what I mean? And that's the reason why. And it's not just Steph, it's Dame, Steph. There's a lot of dudes who can shoot consistently from out there. So it's just interesting. I don't hear a lot of people talking about the appeal of the jump shot being your number one weapon and making a career out of difficult shots that are well defended, and you just can't be stopped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's why Kobe looks so much like MJ too. Is he rode that wave, difficult jump shots, footwork, mid range, threes. Okay, I want to hop into this. What are you doing right now?
I'm at a PhD program in criminology at George Mason. I work as a research assistant. So I work at a center called the for Advancing Criminal Excellence, and I basically get to do research and do these studies. I'm working on all these studies right now. I like mainly focus on reentry, and so I'm interested in like everything that has to do with what do we do with people once they get out of jail, or even the people who don't go to jail, if they like take a plea and they end up on probation, what are we doing with these people? And so I have a lot of probation projects, and actually I'm writing up the IRB proposal for a project because you know how they have the idea that they want to take the felony conviction box off of job applications, right? And so like my idea is to not take the box away because you're still going to do the criminal check anyway. My idea is to add information, to add a space for people to be able to talk about their accomplishments since their last conviction, as a way for, even if you don't get to see me face to face, I get an opportunity to explain more of who I actually am that gets defined beyond me being able to check this box. So I'm actually working on that project right now and drawing up the proposal for it. Actually, I was doing that right before we got on this. So
really?
It's pretty cool.
How did you select George Mason as the school that you wanted to go to?
So I was at Portland State, and it's interesting that like in academia, you have people who are like legit famous, but it's like restricted to like that world, but they're like legit famous, right? And so a lot of that comes with a lot of ego. And so I reached out when I knew I wanted to go to a different school, and I wanted to try to get into one of the best programs in the country. I started reaching out to professors, and one of the professors here, Faye Taxman, she immediately responded. I mean, I'm talking about, you reach out to these people, and it's not all because of ego or whatever. I mean, they're very busy, and they get hundreds and hundreds of emails. But like, so sometimes you don't hear back from people for 2 weeks. And she emailed me back instantly, offered to get on a phone call, talk to me. I went to the conference, the annual conference. And as soon as I saw her, she like raised her hands above her head and she was like, CJ. And like, this is not normal behavior, you know what I mean? And then I met her colleague, Dr. Roods, and she's awesome. She like helped me with my master's thesis when I didn't even go there. You know, I wasn't even her student. She just took time out of her day to help me. And they just showed me so much love that it's just, I mean, I wouldn't go to an unknown situation then and pick that over a situation where I know like the people there like care about me and have shown that they care about me through actions. And so they just showed me so much love that I had to come here.
That's awesome. What's the end goal with this?
What's the goal?
What's the end goal? Yeah, what's CJ's end goal?
I just want to do research. I think the cool thing about so I was a sociology major. I did sociology at Lewis and Clark, and then I did sociology for my master's.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of those ideas are so big, there's a further distance between your ideas that you're creating and the real world. You know what I mean? And the research that I like the people in the city, like oftentimes we're going to do studies for probation and parole, and the people in the study are actually the results of the study are actually going to be used to potentially change the way that people's lives are. And so to me that's super cool, because it's an ability to change it. Instead of just talking about it, I'm not going to be on Facebook complaining about stuff, you know what I mean? I'm going to say, oh, I have this question, I don't know the answer, why don't I do a study on it? It's similar to the job application study. You know, I have this idea, and instead of talking to somebody about it on the internet, I say, oh, I'm going to write up a proposal and I'm going to figure out the answer to this question. You know what I mean? And then depending on the answer that I get, I'm going to lobby to try to see if we can get this changed and get something done about this, not just based on my opinion, but based on my opinion backed up with some kind of evidence. And so to me, that's pretty exciting. So I want to be a professor, and I want to get tenure at a big university. That would be my goal.
Do you have like a dream college, dream university?
I don't know, but I think it would be pretty cool for a person with my background and just everything that I've been through in life to reach that upper crust, you know, kind of like the top 10 schools are kind of all, you know what I mean? Like there's the top schools, and just basically if you're in that zone, then you're respected. And I just think that just to be considered an expert in what I do, and just to have my opinion, to get my writing and my thinking to the level where if I say something, then people who are in rooms that have to have decision-making capability have to listen to me, or at least take my opinion into consideration. I think that would be cool, because then that would mean that I have an ability to affect change at like a top level instead of kind of like more at the lower ground level. So, I mean, that's the goal. It might not happen.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes when you ask someone their goals, the goals are really small, you know.
No.
And ever since I've known you, you've never had small goals, which is something that I really look up to you about. Do you think you're a bigger expert in what you're studying right now, or your basketball hot takes?
Bro, I'm trying to tell you, listen, you talk to me enough about basketball and the straight magma fire that I spew on a consistent basis, but just on a consistent basis. And then like people who even the people who don't want to agree with me, when they give you that, when they have that automatic response, but you hit them from another angle, they realize their automatic response isn't going to work, and then they look, then you know, it's just logical.
Who has the hottest takes, the best takes in the game as far as like on TV? Like who do you look up to?
Well, you know, as long as they're not talking about Jordan or Kobe, I like Nick Wright because he trolls. Because like he says stuff that are like is purposefully to get on people's nerves.
Yeah.
And he has takes that are purposely. The only problem that I have with him is that he, in order to like push his LeBron agenda, he has to talk about Jordan and people like Kobe in a way that completely discounts everything that they brought to the game. Like if he were to talk about Jordan the same way he talks about James Harden, and he talks about James Harden and puts him in a historical context and talks about how historically great he is and all these different numbers that he's doing and all how it hasn't been done. If he talked about Jordan that way and said, even still, I think LeBron is better, I would be able to deal with it. But in order to prop LeBron over Jordan, he has to put Jordan down notches, and you just can't. I mean, you're talking about a dude who just did it all, man. He's the all-time leading scorer. He still has more 40-point games than LeBron. He played like 70 less games in the playoffs. Like he literally was like, it's crazy what he did. And so like, to me, you, instead of tearing one down to build the other one up, you just put both their greatness out and you just pick one.
Yeah.
And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of that is probably just for TV, you know.
Right.
But yeah, you're totally right. Do you miss Portland?
I miss the city, man.
You do.
I'm out here in the woods, man. You know, at nighttime, they haven't got street lights in some of these streets out here, man. I was driving, it's pitch black. There's no lights. It's like country for real. And a lot of times because I live in the suburbs, and so like it's all little separated towns, right? It's not like Portland. Like Portland, you can drive straight down Burnside and you're in Portland, and then you're in Gresham, but you didn't realize that you went from Portland to Gresham. You know what I mean? And then you're in Hillsborough. And then you're in whatever Troutdale, whatever that is. There's no like interruption. There's no like space. Or here, like you're in where I'm at, and then you have to get on the freeway and pass through a bunch of trees and farmland to get to the next place, and it's not connected. So it's like everything is a drive, and it's just a little bit more isolating. There's not as many. So
Do you miss coaching?
Yeah. I mean, I coached a little bit this year. It was with younger kids. I found a dude actually hooping. A lot of really cool connections made hooping, and I hooped with a guy named Eric Williams, and he runs a program out here, D1SA, and we just really vibe just the kind of ways that we saw coaching kids and how we were invested, and he was having me coming out here, and I decided to focus on posts because nobody coaches posts. Everybody coaches perimeter players. And so I was like, boom, how do I come out and not be stepping on people's toes and be seen as a rival, but as an asset? As I said, okay, I'm gonna focus on post players and start teaching footwork and fundamentals at the early developmental stage. And so I've gotten rewards. I felt rewarded doing that, but I miss like coaching like adults. To where like you only got to show them like 2 times and then they got it.
Yeah.
Like we don't got to do the drop step for 30 minutes.
Yeah. Do you see yourself getting back into it?
Yeah, I love it. What I really like is the developmental stuff. I mean, I would coach a team again, but what I think really dope is, and what I think really hurts a lot of players, that in between season time. You know what I mean? You get attached to the wrong dude or the wrong group, and they start giving you bad advice. They start filling your head with all kinds of craziness. They don't actually prepare you or put you through the right rigorous type of routine that's going to set you up for the next year. That could hold you back. Whereas on the flip side, if you get attached to a high quality person that can maximize those off-season months, you know what I mean? Then you can come into the next season already in shape. You're going to come into the next season already prepared mentally for the next level. And I think also with that position, you don't have as many of the institutional barriers that are placed on people, you know what I mean? Because these institutions limit your ability to touch a lot of people's lives. You can only, like let's say I work at a high school, I can only work with the kids from that high school, or you know what I mean? And so it just limits you.
Right.
So ideally, I'd like to work just in that developmental.
Yeah, I mean, you were in some way or fashion, you were born to be a coach, around sports, leading.
I love it.
Hey, Coach Tim mentioned that you drew up a play one time at Fox. I gotta know, did it work?
Listen, I'm going to tell you something, and I hope Coach Tim is watching. I would hit Coach Tim with these gems, right? And he's not a flashy dude, so he don't like the gems. You know what I mean? If it's shining too bright, he don't really like it. And so I would hit him with these plays. There was one time we were in practice, and he let me coach a team, and then he coached the other team. So we were coaching against each other. Then for the final play of the game, 5 seconds left, he came over to just see my huddle, to see my play, and he erased it. Mind you, he's coaching the other team. He erased my play and then drew up his play. You know what I'm saying? So but then we grew from that moment. And then I drew up a play at Fox. We grew, and I drew up a play at Fox, and it was and it worked. We got an open shot. I mean, Matt missed it, but it was back iron, 3. So that's a good miss.
So you have skills on the board.
Oh yeah. Of course.
All right. Well, you're gonna get back into coaching soon. I know it. All right. Take me back. You went to Central Catholic, right?
Yeah, I went to Central.
Did you go there all 4 years?
No, I mean my senior year I got kicked out of school. So
Okay,
no,
but the first three.
my first 3.5,
Okay.
I went there, and then senior year I got kicked out of high school. Ended up finishing at Jeff. Didn't never play sports at Jeff. I mean, it was like January, when I switched schools. Ended up graduating from Jeff.
What in high school, what was your main sport?
Oh, football. I mean, I played hoop and I was good, but I was just good, more like I mean, I couldn't jump like him, but more like a Kenneth Fareed type player. You know what I mean? More like just a guy who's going to finish, just could run and jump. Uh, so I grabbed a lot of boards. I could shoot a little bit. I had a little bit of game, but I'm a lot better at basketball now than I was then. But football, I was good at football.
What was your recruitment like out of high school for football? Like, take me back to those days, the recruitment days.
I mean, it was good. I think that the hard part that I see now is I had a bad attitude in high school, and I think that my bad attitude was misinterpreted in a lot of different ways by a lot of different people, and so I didn't have a lot of people like telling me, like guiding me through like the recruitment process and how I should do things and what I need to be doing, what I need to be looking out for. I remember going to the combine, the high school combine, not even realizing what testing we were going to be asked to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, imagine being being dropped into a science test, but you never study. You know what I mean? You're not going to do well.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I wasn't preparing for like any of these different things. I was kind of just winging it. Like my mom didn't know anything about sports, and so like I didn't know that I should be going to camps in the summer. I only went to one camp the entire time that I was in high school, and so like I was kind of held back in a lot of different ways. But I got a lot of love. I was a good player. I was also playing the wrong position. I didn't even know I was being recruited as a tight end. I didn't even know I played running back. I didn't know. And then my senior year, I played receiver. And nobody told me. Nobody ever sat me down and was like, "Hey, like schools are looking at you as a tight end." I had any idea. And so when I went to all these when I went to camps and I went to the combine, I was at the combine as a running back. And you know how that can set you back. You know what I mean? Like this dude still thinks he's a running back. He whatever. So recruiting was like, now when I look back at it, it could have been a lot better and it could have been a lot more streamlined. But I had a lot of love. I got a lot of love from a lot of different places. I was very talented at a lot of different things. I was like 6'3", 250. I ran a 4.53 hand time, but whatever, 4.53. And
What does
and I
hand
was
time mean?
it's just somebody who
Oh,
it's not like the official like NFL
right,
combine.
right.
It's just somebody at a track. But 4.53 is 4.53, especially as young as I was fast. I was fast enough to get away and stay away. I had good wiggle. I still got that wiggle. I know you've seen it.
Oh boy.
I know you've seen it. And so
What schools were on you?
a lot of them, a lot of the Pac-12 schools. I mean, Pac-10 back then. Oregon State. I was getting some love from Nebraska, UCLA. Our quarterback was getting recruited. I mean, heavily. He had scholarships everywhere. So I was getting love from a lot of those places. And my whole senior year of high school was just a disaster. I got in a lot of trouble, and so I ended up getting kicked off the football team. And like the decisions that I made my senior year in high school like disrupted my recruiting process. And so like at the end of your senior year, after it's all over, is when you start really getting a lot of love. I mean, kids get a lot of love now, but back then there wasn't like 7-on-7, stuff like there is now, and there wasn't the same amount of exposure. And so I ended up signing with Weber State, and was going to go there, and then a lot of circumstances happened and I wasn't able to go. And then I ended up going to Oregon State. During the period of time that I had to wait to go to Weber, I ended up getting a look at Oregon State. And I don't necessarily know whether that was the right decision or not, but I do know that at that time, I knew I was a D1 player, and I was, when you're in high school and you're so wrapped up with this D1 thing, and you think you got to go D1, or I don't know, I thought it meant something more than it really did at that time. And so, you know, I didn't make that same, that decision I told you about George Mason, where you go to the place where the people show you the love. Like if I would have had to do it over again, I would have gone to Weber State just on the strength that in the middle of like one of the darkest times of my life, they were the school that gave me a scholarship. And they were a school that brought me in like at this moment when nobody else would mess with me. And so like, I didn't have that kind of comprehension, at 18. I didn't know that then. So I went to Oregon State instead of Weber. And I mean, I played well, but I kind of partied my way out of school, and I didn't really go to class and stuff. So I was a hot mess when I was 18.
You you're so right about the school selection thing. It's like 99% of the time it's going to pay off better for you just going with the school, even if it's smaller or less, known. Go with the school that is the right fit, that the
Mhm.
people really want you there. It's going to pay off 99% of the time. So did you play your freshman year?
At OSU?
Yeah, at OSU.
No, I redshirted. I got there in the spring, and then I redshirted, and then I just like wasn't going to class. Like that was like the demise of my life. Like I was so frustrated and angry. I had a really hard time with everything that happened my senior year, and at that point in my life, I wasn't able to like look at my part. And like sometimes in life, like things happen to you, and like there might be, if you like put them on a scale, like the things that were done to you, you might feel like way heavier than the things that you did. But like the power is in looking at the things that you did and changing what you couldn't change because you don't have control over other people. And I didn't have that comprehension. So I was so focused on what I thought were the things that were done to me that I felt powerless instead of powerful at that moment. And it just really sapped away my like drive. I just didn't, I wasn't driven in the same ways for the same reasons. I was driven more like from a I told you so than like a I love the game, love for the game, and love for the process. And um and I just wasn't going to class. And Coach Ryan called me into the office. I was doing good in practice. I was killing dudes. I was killing dudes in practice. But he came in and was just like, look, dude, like you got to figure out life, and then like football will take care of itself. And he gave me a set of things that I needed to do, and that I needed to take the season off, and I could come back at the end of the season if I had like these boxes checked off. And I just wasn't a responsible enough young adult to take care of all those things for that period of time without, like if you take practice away from some people's lives, like they structure their entire lives around the sport.
Right.
And so like I'll go to class because we have practice this morning, and I'll just go to class because I went from practice to class, right? But if you take practice away, am I waking up to go to class? Am I really am I really waking up to just go to class? And then am I going to study if I know I'm not going to get in trouble if nobody's watching me? And so that's kind of where I was at 18.
Yeah. It's crazy because I obviously didn't know you back then, but you're such a brilliant guy and such a hard worker. And, you have all these amazing qualities to you from what I see now. Did you have those back then and they were just being pushed down, or?
What I know is that when I was young, I had a lot of intelligence. I just didn't care about school. Nobody had taken the time to break through the walls that I had built up. You know what I mean? Like I had different walls, I had different barriers built up, but at the core of that, I just wanted to be great, and I wanted to be considered great. Um, and there was nobody like that was viewed as this negative, that was viewed as this arrogance, that was viewed as this whatever, but that really isn't the core of what it really was. And I don't really blame people for seeing it that way or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm a little frustrated, as an adult in the way that I coach, because there's kids like that all the time. You know what I mean? Like we all coach kids who are hard to deal with. You know what I mean? And the question, and how do you break through with that kid? And it doesn't happen through writing them off as arrogant or writing them off as whatever, and then just being like, well, we're just going to let that kid be over there in the corner. It only changes through investment. You know what I mean? And certain people need more time invested into them, and not just to help the team, but to learn this lesson for their life. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the negatives that show up as symptoms of their game are the same negatives that they have in their life. Like that same thing exists. And so like and for me that was definitely true. And so I think that what prevented it is, number one, my hard-headedness, because I'm a hard-headed dude. And number two, there was nobody in my life at that point that wanted to invest the time into me as a person beyond me just as, like, if I knew the plays and I was most of the time going where I was supposed to go, they kind of just let me do my thing. And nobody really let me know how serious it was, the mistakes that I was making, and how they could have like magnified consequences as time went by.
You mentioned, if now as a coach, if you have a kid that's not doing the right things, you invest in them. Is there a point where you have to just cut the kid off so that he can learn?
I think that there is.
He can
I
learn.
mean, I think that it happened with me. Granted, I didn't learn until years later, but I think one of the things that's frustrating as a coach and as a teacher of young people is that we want the information to hit their ears, and we want them to have a visual that they understand, and we want it to instantly transfer into action, right? And then if we tell somebody something and then they tell us like, yeah, I get it, coach, but then it doesn't turn into action, we attach labels to that, like, oh, they're BSing, or oh, they really don't get it. But when reality is that's not how people learn. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things, like, imagine all the stuff your mom told you when you were a kid. You know what I mean? Your mom told you a whole bunch of stuff, and a lot of that stuff doesn't hit you until years later, until you're like, oh, now I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, now I understand what my mom was talking to me when I was 11 years old. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I get it, but I'm 23. You know, like, we forget that process as coaches, in my opinion. Granted, this is my opinion. We forget that, and we think that if I told you something and we didn't get the result that I want, that you were, number one, not listening, and that you were not learning. But, you know, unfortunately, some people don't learn until that's why a lot of guys get better when they're older, you know? Like, oh, I'm a better player now than I was when I played. You learned all these lessons years later, but you could never have learned the lesson if somebody didn't plant that seed. You know what I mean? If somebody didn't plant that seed in your head, you can't have that aha moment in whatever 3 years or 4 years from now. You know what I mean? If somebody doesn't plant that seed, you just, I don't know, stay stupid, I guess.
I love that. That's so right. I mean, you're so right. The different ways that people learn, and how, we don't take that into account all the time when we're, looking at a kid's actions. I think that's huge. Are you a coffee guy, by the way?
Oh, I'm drinking coffee right now.
What cup are we on?
This is number 3.
Number 3 at 2:30.
Yes, sir.
Let's go.
2:39.
Are you the kind of guy that can have a cup before bed and go to sleep?
Man, I don't go to sleep until like 2 a.m. So I have a terrible time sleeping.
What's your sleep schedule? 2 to what?
2 to like 8.
It's not enough, CJ.
Rob, when I was in grad school and my master's, I was working full-time nights at a veterans homeless shelter, and I was coaching 2 sports, and I was doing work I worked for school, and I had school full-time. So I would literally, like, it was crazy. When I would do the camps in the summer, I would get off of work from the homeless shelter, drive to the camp, be at the camp all day, then go from the camp back to work. And then I would like take naps. And so, man, like, it's crazy, man.
That's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah. All right. So you leave Oregon State, right? Did they tell you to leave, or did you leave on your own?
Well, they kicked me off the football team.
Okay.
And then they told me that I had to take the season off. And then they gave me that checklist of things that I had to do, right? So I had like a certain amount that I needed to be able to bench, and needed to be able to squat, and I needed to be at a certain weight, and I needed to have like certain grades or whatever. And it was basically just keep on our program and, you know what I mean, come back. And I wasn't able to do that. Like that was when I really started getting into drinking and drugging, because I was on the football team at Oregon State and everything was free. It's like you're a celebrity down there, and I just wasn't very mature. And so I ended up like I was, and that's one of the reasons why I have eligibility at Lewis and Clark at 28 years old, is because I would sign up for class and never go to one. Like I signed up for 2 terms there and never went to one class, like not one. And so I did that 5 different terms, which is the reason why I still had eligibility. Because if you don't,
hold on. Let's break that down, because I think that's going to go over my head and a lot of people's heads. So 5 different terms.
In my college career,
You signed up for classes but didn't go to one class.
Not one class. And what that means is when you go back, the eligibility for D3 is it counts as a term if you sign up for full time and you went to one class. If you went to one, it's in the rules. And the reason why I still had eligibility is because when I went back and appealed all of those terms to get them to turn from Fs to withdrawals, is if you never attend one class, it's an automatic withdrawal. You can't get a grade for a class you never attended. So it was actually in the language of the appeal that I never went to one class. So it was like proof, you know, because like nobody's gonna believe you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I was actually such a mess up, right? I was such a mess up that I actually ended up later in life.
Yeah. So the part that I left off, I couldn't hear you, was when you were signing up for those classes and not going, were you paying or were they covered in your scholarship?
The first one was covered by them, but then the second term was my mom.
Okay.
And my loans. But then like, yeah, it was just 2 more terms there. So I was there a calendar year and flunked out of school and just came home. And that was devastating. When you leave like that and you're like, I mean, there's nobody in my neighborhood who is doing, you know, a lot of different things like that. And you leave and you're kind of like sent off and it's like super dope. And it's like, man, you're going to make it. And then when you come home and you don't have an actual reason why it didn't work, it was just that you didn't go to class. Like that's not that's not a good reason. You know what I mean? And so, it was just a very dark time, dark time.
Did I mean, just from an athletic standpoint, a lot of people probably don't even know your story, but the years in between athletic seasons and the different sports you played and the different schools you played, can you just run through? I mean, like, you went from Oregon State football to PC.
I went from Oregon State football in 2004, and then I played, and then I got in trouble.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't playing any sports or doing anything athletic or anything for years. And then I ended up going to drug treatment. And it's a 6-month program. And then the last 2 months, you end up getting a job. So this was in 2010. So it was a 6-year break. And in 2010, during the two-month period, you either get a job or you go back to school. So I was like, I want to go back to school. And I was at the bus stop. I had gone to PCC and like met with like an academic advisor or whatever. And I was on the bus stop to go back to the treatment facility. And a buddy of mine walked by and saw me at the bus stop. And he was like, bro, like PCC has a hoop team. I didn't even know PCC had a basketball team. He was like, PCC has a hoop team. And he was like, you should go play for PCC. And I was like, what? And I was literally, the bus stop at PCC is right outside the gym. And so I was like, what? They got a basketball team? So I walked into the gym, they had practice. It was during the, you know, the little winter break time that like is right in between like preseason and regular season and when the grades come out.
Mm-hmm.
So I went into the practice, you know, like the door was closed, everything. I opened up the door and went into the practice. And I was just like, what's up? And their assistant coach came by and I was like, can I play? And he was just like, what? And I was like, I want to play. And he was like, well, can you play? And I was like, with these dudes, I could play. And
You'd watched them for 5 minutes, and you're like,
I
"Oh,
was like, come on, man. Come on, don't be disrespectful. And and um and I was big at the time. Like I said, I had not been playing basketball. I was like 310 pounds, like the most I've ever been in my life.
I mean, you literally like weren't playing pickup ball or nothing."
I mean, I played like because I was in and out of jail a lot. You know what I
Were
mean?
you
From the time
hooping?
I was,
Were you hooping in jail?
yeah,
Okay.
that's when I got good at basketball, honestly, because I couldn't dribble or anything when I was young. But you're not playing post in jail because you're gonna have to fight. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody trying to do all that, so you got to turn into a perimeter player. So then I taught myself how to dribble. But I was just in and out, and I wasn't like consistently hooping, and I never had like a trainer like trying to show me anything. My coaches in school, in high school, were good coaches, but it was more system. It wasn't like player development. And you know, back in those days, they didn't have like the same setup that they have now, where they have skill workouts and all this different stuff. It just wasn't the same.
Right.
And so he was just like, "Look, you can come back tomorrow and try out." And so I came back the next day and you know, put in that work. You know what I'm saying? When you punch in, you know what I mean?
Put your hard hat on and clock in.
Listen, came with that lunch pail. You know what I mean? With that turkey and cheese sandwich. You know what I'm saying?
So this is 4 years later, right? From OSU.
6 years.
6 years later.
This is 6 years later, and not having hooped in 7 years on like a team. And then what happened is all we had a lot of good players on that team, but they all flunked out of school. So we ended up having a team. And so my very first game, I come off the bench and have 28 and 12. It's
I
a
mean,
first hoop game in 7 years.
think about that. Were you mind blown when you got done with the game?
Listen, man, that 310-pound drop step was something ferocious. That's all it was all game was drop step. That's it. That's all I did.
Were you dying like physically because you were so heavy?
I was heavy, but I was always quick. I've always been quick. And so, and you know, community college game, there's a lot of like 6'7", 6'8" posts, you know what I mean? And that's like the upper crust of like where I could get my shot off. You know, if you're 6'10", 7 foot, it's tough to play inside just because they're so long. But 6'8", 6'9", you know what I mean? Like I could still bump you off and get off. And so I played that 1 year, and I did decent in school. And then after the season was over, I relapsed, and so like I was back on the cycle. And then I didn't play after that all the way up until when did I even play at PCC? I think it was 2013, 2014, something like that. I think it was 2013, and I didn't even plan on playing there. I had gotten clean, and I had a job, and I was just very thankful for the opportunity that they had given me. And so I went up to the gym just to say thank you to the athletic director and the people in the office, because they had always shown me so much love. Even when I was like homeless and I was doing bad and like doing like really bad, like I would come to the gym every once in a while, and they would never like be like, "Hey, you know, get out of here," or anything like that. They just showed me a lot of love, and so I just went there to just show them my appreciation. And they had a new coach, Coach Broadus, who's the coach there now, and they were like, "Well, we got a new coach, and we got something going on. Like, we're investing into the team." And so then I was just like, you know, like I didn't want to play sports because every single time I try to get my life back together, I would always jump back on the sports. And I was at the point where I was like 28, 27 years old. And I'm like, you know, I'm getting too old to be chasing after this old dream. I just need to go to school and whatever. But, you know, like the door was open. It's not something I sought out. It was something that like I just went there, and it was an opportunity, a door that opened for me, like right in front of me. And so I talked to my sponsor at the time, and he was just like, "Man, we walk through those open doors. Like in life, doors will open for you, and you don't ignore the door that's open to go through another door." You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta be able to recognize these moments. And so I played, and we ended up winning the championship. The first winning season in the history of PCC, like the history of the school. They never had a winning season before. And not only we had the first winning season, but we won the whole NWAC when it was
That's
there.
crazy. That's crazy because I think I read 2 years prior they went 0-24.
Yeah. And then they got Coach Broadus, and then we had a good team. And then when I came, our average age was like 24. And it's funny because Tim is always hating because he says Portland has no hoopers. But the best part about PCC winning is it was all Portland dudes. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of Portland dudes that never got to play. You know, that for whatever reason, grades or whatever reason, they didn't get to like really put their skills on display. But we had some good hoopers, man. We had dude Josh Turner, he's a killer, man, and Warren and my boy Angelo, and we had a lot of good players on that team. And Tremaine, we had a good point guard, and Anthony. We had a lot of good players on the team, and they were super funny. Like, it was the funniest team I ever been on. And we just got inducted to the Hall of Fame there, and it was super dope. Like, they just started a Hall of Fame there, and it was awesome. And I thought it was over. Like, I didn't expect to get recruited. I was just like, cool. And then I was like, I'm just gonna go to PSU. And then my coach came up to me and was like, the coach at Lewis and Clark is one of our better friends. And I went to the All-Star game, the NWAC All-Star game, and at PCC I just played in the post. But at the All-Star game, I was dribbling around, like doing the stuff you don't normally do.
Yeah.
And I guess his interest was piqued because he didn't know that I could do multiple things, you know. And so then he asked about my grades, and I had good grades there. I had like a 3.8 or something like that, mostly getting straight A's. And then they approached me and they were like, Lewis and Clark is trying to recruit you. And I was like, they're not finna let me into that school, man.
Did you even know what Lewis and Clark was? Like, did you even know about it?
I'm from Portland, so I've been to Lewis and Clark before, but just from an athletic standpoint, when I was younger, my vision was far above the D3 level, and my grades, I could have never gotten into a school like that. And that's what I thought when they recruited me from PCC. I'm like, my high school grades are never going to let me in there. And then I realized if you're a transfer, your high school grades don't matter. You know what I mean? And but I was a transfer. You should see my transcript, man, from 2003 to 2013 with all those W's and F's, and it was a lot. My transcript is nasty, and but I had those 4 terms. You know, I had the summer, fall, winter, spring of that recent chunk that I had been in school. That was the stellar. And, you know, they told me to come in and talk to the people at LC. And I just told them, you know, like, this is what's happened in my life. And like, the person that you see in these 4 terms is the person who I am today. You know, so you can judge me from that other stuff. And like, I'm not going to be mad at you, but this is who I am. And the person who's sitting in front of you is a straight A, pretty much a straight A student. And then they let your boy in.
I mean, kudos to whoever was going through your you know, I mean, like, on that initial look, like you said, it was probably a wild transcript. How was it a long process to get to talk through what had happened through your life and like this?
Not really. I just met with the people, and you know, I've been through a lot. Like I've been through a lot, and I have a lot of. I've like analyzed all these different parts of my life, and through a part of my recovery process. And so I have a decent understanding of who I am, and I have an ability to talk about who I am and what I've been through, because that's just a part of my recovery process. Like I do an AA, and we tell our life stories a lot, and we go through the process of helping other people. So I have a pretty decent grasp on what it is that I do and what it is that I'm about. And I think that helped me kind of, because it's hard to put the things that you've done and the things that you've learned into words. And I've had a decent amount of practice in doing that. So I think that helped me. And I had the grades, but like my cumulative, because all those F's were turned into W's, so they didn't work against me. So like I had the grades, and they took a chance on me. But the one thing that my sponsor told me is he was just like, look, you got a responsibility that like they're doing this for you, and you got to make sure that you kill it so much that the next person like you, when they ask, they can be like, well, we tried this and it worked. So now the next person gets in, and then the next person gets in. And so, yeah. And I ended up having better grades at LC than I had at PCC.
I have so many questions. One, my first question is, are you sick of talking about all of this? I mean, like, honestly, because I know that you've had many articles done on you, and
Right.
like,
I mean, it's all right. I would rather like talk to somebody about it than like talk to somebody about it and then have them go write an article on it and then end up being like just bits and pieces with like no context. Because sometimes some of them quotes can be kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, I mean, it is what it is. I think it's you can get self-conscious talking about it, but one thing my sponsor says is he says, you know, for the people who already know your story, they might be like, "Oh my God, here I got to hear it again." But there's some people who've never heard it,
Mm.
and for the people who've never heard it, it's inspiring, right? Like that's who the story is for. It's not for the people who have heard it a million times. That's not who you're telling the story for. It's
Right.
for the person who's never heard it, who's maybe looking for something to hold on to. You know what I mean? Just saying like, man, like everything. Because I literally thought everything was over. I never thought I'd do anything cool or get to play. At a 4-year school, I thought I had ruined all those opportunities for myself. And so at that moment, if I would have heard somebody say, "Boom," like that happens to me all the time. Like I want to be a tenure track professor and I have felony convictions, and so like when I'm looking like, oh, am I even going to be able to do it, there's other people who have already done it, you know what I mean? And so like the fact that that's happened and then I can read about their story or whatever, like that's super inspiring, and it allows you to keep going. So that's kind of what I try to pay attention to. Otherwise it is like, oh boy.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. I was a little hesitant to even, dive into any of it, but then at the end of the day, I figured, you're an honest person. You'll tell me if you don't want to say something, and
It's
um,
all good, brother.
I like having a conversation with you. Every time we would drive to the Wits, I would talk your ear off for about 6 hours. So I figured, why not?
Well,
Why not one more
which
hour?
is funny though, because you might not want to tell the viewers that when you first met me, you wasn't even messing with me.
I didn't even know you.
I know, but you wasn't trying to get to know me. Let's be real. I had seen you with Coach K, and I was like, "What's up?" And then you was hitting me with the cold shoulder. You was hitting me
Really?
with the coldest of shoulders
Where was that?
at the gym a million times. I'd have cracked it, and this is how I knew it was the cold shoulder because I'm a funny dude, right? And when you crack a joke, you know it's funny, and you got somebody who's just hitting you with the.
I was doing that.
You was hitting me with it. You was hitting me with it. You was
I'm
hitting
a,
me with it, and it's okay, and it's all right. You know what I mean? Because
I believe you, but I'm a really good laugher.
I know, and this is the even more. It was even more confirmation. Now that I know you, it's even more confirmation. It's
Hey,
even more
I am
confirmation.
shy with people I don't know. That might have been it. I don't know.
And so now we're cool, and we became cool when I started becoming a coach, and so yeah, and we actually had some interactions in the WITS trips. We actually have a lot in common. You know what I mean?
Heck
But
yeah.
I had to bust your balls about that because I know you're gonna act like that didn't happen. I know you're gonna act like I didn't come out and crack them jokes.
You're pretty funny. I'll give you that. You're pretty funny. Hey, all right. So Denari sees you at the All Star game, Coach Denari Foreman, and sees that you can do things other than just post up. You have good hands. You can dribble. You can shoot. Um,
Ass.
and so he talks to you after the game. Did you add?
No,
Did you add passing into there? Is that what you said? Passing.
oh yes, passing. I think passing is my best skill.
You're
It's,
like Mark Gasol or Boris Diaw.
oh, Boris Diaw. Yes, I'm talking about old Boris. Oh, a little bit overweight, but like still in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah, like old, like point forward Boris.
Yeah. So
Like
does he talk to you? Does Denari talk to you after the game?
no, like after I didn't even know Denario was like alive at that point in time. I just I didn't know anything about that. I was just thought it was cool that I was in the game, and I just like I said, I literally
You
thought
thought you were done.
I thought that was my last basketball game. And then just a couple weeks later, it turns out that our coach was friends with Denari and told me about him, and then it was all about the financial package because I told him I was like I ain't got no money. You know what I'm saying? Like you telling me you whispering all these sweet nothings in my ear, but I don't got no money, so you ain't gonna get nothing from me. So I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
And then they hit me with the financial package, and then I got in, and that's when I knew it was game time.
And
When I got
the
in
money
to
lined up,
LC,
right?
yeah. When I got in there, I mean, but I was a when you're a non-traditional student, you're just the money comes from a different pool. You know, it's not the same pool that everybody else gets their money from. It's just different because after you're 24, you don't have like parental expectations. Like you don't have like a lot of the constraints for like 18, 19-year-old kids. So I was able to get a good package, and then when I got there, I just knew I had to kill it, man. I was like, man, I wanted to make it to the Hall of Fame. I wanted to be on the wall. I had all these goals, like very clear goals, in a way that I never had when I was younger. When I was younger, I wanted to like talk to girls, and I wanted to do all these different things. I wanted to go to parties, and like, it's not that you're not focused. It's just you're focused on too many different things. You know what I mean? And being 28 years old, 29, I think at the time, I wasn't distracted by a lot of those things. I was just like, man, the first thing I wanted to be is a captain. I wanted to be a captain on the team, and I wanted to be voted a captain, and which is hard to do as a transfer. Nobody knows who you are, and I was voted a captain before the season started.
That's crazy to do that in like 2 months.
Right. Over the course of the summer, and in the first 2 months of the season, I was voted a captain, and I was very proud of that because it was voted on by the players. And
How did you do that?
I just show love, man. Like I'm big on showing love and just big on building people up and helping people out and investing my time into people. And I found out when I was young, what I realized is that I did not know how to do. And the reason why I think people maybe correctly interpreted me as kind of like an asshole is because in my attempt at being friendly with people, I did not know how to just show love. Just unadulterated, no agenda, just positivity, pumping positivity and being positive with people. And so like that's just kind of what I try to do. And when I got there, I was just like, man, I just want to make people laugh, and then I want to show people love and try to be a leader and try to explain things to people and let people know like it's not just on the basketball court, it's just in life. Like these are the things that I need, that I see that you could help out with, and just these different, being like a big brother type person. And so yeah, I mean it worked out, and your boy was out there killing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And so,
the was it the first year or the second year you were like all conference?
but my first year, I was all conference, and
You guys made it to the championship game, right?
went to the championship game, and we had a good team. We had we led the nation in rebound differential that year, and we had good players. I mean, we had a very talented team. We had Jason and Cannon and Serge. Brad was good. Brad was a good player. Like we had different players who played different roles. Like I played a role on that team. Brad played a role on the team. Jason played a role. Like Jason could have averaged more points, but he had a role on the team. You know, Serge, his role was actually just shooting the ball all the damn time. But like we had different people who did different things, and everybody brought. We had dudes on the bench who were, I mean, great player. Justin was on the bench. Justin Leathers, 6'6", can shoot, can dribble. You know what I mean? Like he always makes his hook. It always goes in. I mean, that dude's on the bench. That dude's coming off the bench for us. You know, we just had a very talented team, and you know it's hard to beat Whitman and Whitman. You know, especially that Whitman team because they were less talented, and so they were just assholes, really.
And so
But
then you beat them and then go to Spokane and play Whitworth, right, in the title?
yeah, we weren't ready. Yeah, we weren't ready to beat them. I don't know. It's something about Whitworth at that time. We almost beat them in the regular season. We actually were on the free throw line with the game tied with like 7 seconds left in the game, and we missed the 2 free throws. And then the game went into overtime, and they had a dude on their team, Kenny Love, and that dude was just one of those players that he just always made the play when they needed it. You know, he would score 8 and be happy, but then he might get 30. And it was all what they needed. You know what I mean? It was all right at the right time. And he was a killer, man.
Yeah.
So he took it over in the overtime. We ended up losing to him. But there was like a certain stigma when you go to the Wits that you're supposed to lose. And if you play well, then that's a win, even if you don't win. And it's kind of difficult to get out of that mode as a program. You know what I mean? And it's kind of difficult when you come into that kind of culture. Because you don't know how to shit. I'm not good enough at basketball to be the guy to be like, oh, let's go. I'm gonna go get 25, and like I'm not gonna get you 25. Like a good game for me is 14 and 14. You know what I mean? I don't need to be shooting 12. I mean now maybe because your boy's jumper is aqua fina. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about like it's crazy the development. But back then, you know, but back then that's not who I was as a player. I wasn't that's not what I was gonna do. So I think like when I was at PCC, the reason why we were able to win the championship is because we had a couple guys on our team that could just go get it. You know what I mean? Like in the semifinals of the tournament, we had a guy get 43 against a team we had lost to by 30 earlier that year. We had lost to the same team by 30, and we had one dude on our team just say, "Okay, I'm gonna have 36 and a half."
Who
And
was it?
then his name was Warren Edmondson. And like when you have a dude who just when you like you play basketball your whole life, there's sometimes you have certain guys that can say, you know, okay, I'm gonna change by myself. I'm gonna change the course of what would normally happen in this game. You know, we had two of those guys on that team. We had him and we had a dude named Josh Turner who could just. I mean, we were down like 23, and we were in the first game of that tournament. We were down 23 points, and we came back from 23, and Josh, I mean, he just went crazy in the second half of that game, and it was just like when you have that guy going, you know, you got a chance. You're like, oh, okay, and we just didn't have that. We didn't have that singular force, and a lot of D3 teams don't have that guy. You know, that's not D3 basketball. D3 basketball isn't usually one guy who's just gonna go get you 40 or go get you a real strong 25. You know, it's not like that, and so it was different. And we went up there and got smacked.
So did you played basketball and football both years at LC?
No, I ended up playing both 2 years, but because I was at LC for 3 years,
Okay.
and I had 5 terms of eligibility, and so I ended up playing basketball my first year, basketball and football my second year, and just football my third year.
Okay. Now, what are some of the strengths and weaknesses of playing college athletics, into your 30s? Like what were some things that
I know the weaknesses. The weaknesses is the recovery time. I mean, you're just hurt the whole year. You're hurting bad, and your body never feels fresh. And like now I can feel good. Like now when I go play pickup games, I feel good because I'm fresh every time I go play. You know what I mean? Like even if I go play for 2 hours, I didn't run hard the whole time. Whereas like it's just a grind of practice. And then like in order to be a good player in basketball, you have to put in extra work. So it's not just practice. You got to go put up 300, 400 shots later. And then you have to go do, and if you play in the post, it's not as easy as just going shooting spot up jumpers. You got to like go do moves and stuff. And so it was just difficult dealing with the recovery because I got hurt a lot. Like I got hurt. I pulled my hamstring heading into the summer, heading into my second year. And so like half the summer I was sidelined, and then I ended up fracturing my ribs the last game in the fourth quarter of the last game of football. So I played my whole second year of basketball with fractured ribs. I ended up pulling my hamstring in the second game of my senior year of football and missed 4 games. And so like, I think it's tough because I thought I could have been a 2-time all-league player in both sports, which would have given me a good shot at getting into the hall. You know what I mean? But I think, that wasn't in the cards really. So.
did you have deals with your coaches like, hey, like I know we got to work hard, but like your boy needs today off?
Coach Losi, I didn't even practice until like Wednesday.
Really?
Coach Losi in football. But that made it hard. What I didn't realize, if I'd have had it to do all over again, I'd have just played 1 year of football. And it would have just been my last year and not have it get in the way of basketball, because when I was young, I forgot about that period of time between football and basketball when you're just so bad at basketball because you haven't been hooping. And then like you have to get back into the groove. But then I had my athleticism. So I would just like grab all the boards or whatever. But like now I'm not the same athlete. So when I came to basketball and I hadn't been hooping, like it was not good, man. I mean, I think I averaged like 8 and 6 my senior year, and it just wasn't good. It just wasn't good because I never was in rhythm the whole year. I was never, and you got to play basketball a lot to be good at basketball. Like
Right.
it's not It's not something like football. Like I didn't play football for 12 years. 12 years. I didn't go to the park and throw the ball. I didn't play football for 12 years. And after one season, I was an all conference player one season later. Like no, no
Crazy.
pickup. You know what I'm saying? Like I hadn't been working on my jab step and my releases, and I didn't work on my football game. It's because it's just about running and catching the ball. Or basketball, you got to put the ball in the basket. That shit's
Right.
hard.
Right. So what are some of the strengths of being that age?
Well, you just see everything so different. Just the ebbs and flows emotionally. You're able to recognize things for what they really are, and you're able to put moments into places where they belong. Like it's not like feast or famine. It's not like all or nothing. It's not like you're able to like zoom out in a way that like when your life is sports and your life has always been sports from the time that you were freaking in first grade, then you lose a game or you have a bad month, then it means everything because it literally is who you are, like your identity as a human being. And even though that still was there, being able to kind of like zoom out and being able to see like what does our team need at this moment, like what is needed beyond me, like oh, okay, I had a bad game, okay, or being able to even reset during the game to say like oh, I'm missing, well, what else can I do? You know what I'm saying? Like when you're young, you might not be able to do that, you might not be able to see that. And I think just being able to help my teammates in life and just helping them learn life lessons that I wished that I knew when I was 19, 20 years old. That's like the strength because it's like the foundation of our relationship, which is like super strong. Our team, our basketball team at least, is still really, really close.
Man, that first part hits home with me because I was one of those people that if I had a bad game or like was in a slump, wasn't playing well, it killed me. Like it really like brought me down. Um, for longer than it should have and stronger than it should have. If I would have been 30 playing at Lewis and Clark, it probably would have brought my anxiety down quite a bit as far as around athletics. I feel like now you're more into basketball than football. Am I right?
Oh yeah, I love basketball now. I love it. I fell in love with the game, man. I because I never went to like trainers and stuff. Like nobody like walked me through all this different stuff. I had to learn to hoop by watching other people, imitating. Um, and so like nobody ever taught me how to shoot step backs. Nobody ever taught me like I played post my whole life. I don't have a hook shot. I don't have a hook shot because nobody ever taught me. Like so imagine playing post with no hook shot. Like all my shots were fadeaways or like drop steps, and nobody taught me to drop step either. I taught myself all these different things. And so the negative of that is I was always like a half step behind with like development. But the positive is now that I have to teach other people that I can teach better because I had to teach myself. You know what I mean? Like I had to learn like and put together this information in a certain way, and it's really cool and it's really rewarding helping other people like learn those things. And I just love basketball.
You're a hooper. You're a
I
hooper.
love it.
Do you feel satisfied with your athletic career?
I mean, I feel lucky. Because imagine if I would have, all those different times I try to go back to school, if I would have, gone to my classes, I would have never had the opportunity to LC. You know what I mean? Like it was a lot of crazy things had to happen and all come together perfectly for me to have eligibility at 28, for me to be in that position, for me to, be to PCC. What if I went to Clackamas Community College instead of PCC? Like what if I went to, whatever. There's a lot of different things that could have happened. And so I got an opportunity and I took advantage of the opportunity. I put in a lot of work, but I also believe I got really lucky. And so like I'm super happy. I mean, I have regrets just because I think certain things, I think I could have given a little bit more effort in certain areas and doing certain things. But overall, I'm like really happy with it.
That's what's up, man. I see you rocking the pile gear.
Oh yeah, I still got it, baby. Let's go. Let's
All right,
go.
bro. Well, I appreciate you taking so much time out of your day to talk to me. I'm gonna talk to Tim and let him know that if he needs any more drawn up plays, hit your boy up long
Yes,
distance.
All you need to know about Tim, coolest dude I ever met in my life, right? All you need to tell him is that Portland Hoopers will always be superior to Mississippi Hoopers. That's all you need to let him know. And you know why? Because of pure numbers.
It's
Just the
it's a
numbers.
numbers game.
It's a numbers game. We don't got nobody here. There's no people here.
It's a numbers game, man.
It's a numbers game. So the quality is just upper crust, man. They got all them dudes down there, and ain't nobody worried about them. So that's all you need to do is tell Tim that.
I'm gonna send him this.
It's all good.
It's all good. All right, baby.
All right, man.
Roll piles.
Yes, sir.
Talk to you soon.